Today on my eBay listing is this Nikon F Photomic. I am going to be listing this camera as 4 parts or not working because of a few mechanical and cosmetic flaws that I will go over in this video. This camera does not come with a lens and it does not come with a body cap, although an F-mount body cap of any vintage will work on this camera to protect the mirror and the throat of the camera. First, I thought we'd step down through the shutter speeds and see what this camera is capable of, as there are a few mechanical issues with the shutter toward the slower speeds. So first, I'm going to change the shutter speed to 1/1000th of a second, and that is controlled by moving this dial here on the top. So this is 1/1000th of a second, 1/500th of a second, 1/250th of a second, 1/125th of a second, 1/60th of a second, which is the flash sync speed, 1/30th of a second, 1/15th of a second, 1/8th of a second, and as we get into the slower speeds, you can hear the mechanism in the camera working these slower shutter speeds. This is 1/4 of a second, 1/2, and this is the 1 full second. Now, the 1 full second is very slow and it is not accurate. Try that again. So you can hear a little bit of hesitation in the camera mechanics on the 1 second shutter speed. This is your bulb setting. If you had a lens on the camera, it would stay stopped down, the shutter remains open, and the mirror stays up until I release my finger from the shutter button. There's also a time setting. Now, every other camera that I have owned requires you to press the shutter button twice for the timed shutter exposure mode. Not this camera. This camera is not working correctly. Press the shutter down once. In reality, you should be able to push the shutter button again, but not on this version. On this version, you have to turn the shutter speed dial back down to another speed to release the mirror again. So be aware of that. Let's open up the camera. This is reminiscent of the Leica cameras and some Voigtlander cameras that open from the bottom. You might have heard a click there. That was the shutter counter, the frame counter going back down to 0. As we open up the back of the camera, we can see that this is a later version with a serial number of 7112596, which means that it's not a cloth shutter. And you can see it's operating very nicely. If we look at the back of the pressure plate and on the film back, you can see that on this side it's a little bit loose, too loose. So be aware that these holders here can come off at any given time, and that does affect the transfer of the film. Now let's move on to the prism that is removable and interchangeable. To remove the prism, we press this button in here. And move this latch on the side here simultaneously, and that way we can take off the prism. This prism is very nice. It has nice glass, And upon looking through the viewfinder into the light, I am seeing very little evidence of dirt specks, dust specks. So that is a very clean prism. This prism is inoperable. I put two 625 batteries in here to power the meter, and unfortunately the meter is dead. The only function that this serves is a eye-level viewfinder. So that's why, the main reason why this camera will be listed as 4 parts or not working. Here is the focusing screen. Right here, it's just a common split prism focusing screen. They are removable, but I do not want to remove this focusing screen. There's no reason to remove the focusing screen. I only remove focusing screens when they're broken and I need a replacement. So that is that. Here is your rewind crank. It's a very nice metal crank. This does not open the camera, as stated earlier. Like the Leica and the Voigtlanders, it has a clasp on the bottom, and it will open from the bottom, not from the side. So that's that. This little prong here on each side of the rewind crank is an attachment for a hot shoe, which you can put a flash onto, and that will sink into the port right here on the side. That's where that goes. I have not tested the self-timer yet, or the mirror lockup feature, so we'll do that now. We can actually do that with the prism off. It's quite cumbersome to get the prism back onto the camera. So I will move the dial to a higher speed and operate the shutter. Self-timer, rather. So the self-timer works nicely. The mirror lockup feature does not work as it should. As you see, I am moving the dial back and forth and nothing is happening to the shutter. Mirror, rather. It's nothing happened to the mirror. It should lock up the mirror. That's not happening, so another reason why this camera is 4 parts. Let's check the mirror damper on the front. The piece of foam stripping here. It's too stiff. It's not suitable for pictures, for putting a roll of film into the camera yet. So I would replace that immediately. Also, there is a piece of foam strip for the prism. That's right here. And that is all deteriorated and it's coming off on my fingers. So be aware of that when you check over the photos. With all that being said, I am designating this camera as 4 parts or not working for obvious reason now. When this camera is sold, the user will be tasked at fixing this up, cleaning it up. This is not a camera for somebody who wants a Nikon F immediately. This is for somebody who likes fixing up cameras and wants a project. So thank you very much for watching. Be sure to check out my other camera listings on eBay and here on YouTube. Thank you.